congratulations for the upcoming release of God of Angels Trust.
Thank
And
you.
well, I think the record somehow explored some themes of spirituality and religion. But is there an overall theme that connects the song? What are the key message that you are trying to explore?
Huh. Yeah, good one. Honestly, I have no idea. That's Michael's department. I don't know. I mean, the lyrics is his. So you got to ask him about that. I don't know. But yeah, of course, there's some spirituality going on. I wouldn't say religion as such. I wouldn't say that. None of us are religious. So, but yeah, definitely some spirituality. I would agree to that.
And what about the cover art? Because it shows the goat figure. It has all about it dialogues with the song. The song that talks about the goats, or do you think that it represents the whole album?
Well, yeah, I mean, well, the cover is let's see if I can get this right because I'm not really completely sure. I guess that the idea of the little girl lying in her room is supposed to be safe place. Our bedrooms is supposed to be safe, and you got the goat there, so I guess it's kind of shows that it's perhaps not really that safe after all.
Yes, and well, the track "Demonic Depression." It starts with like a double bass groove,
Yeah.
and it's I think the fast and heavy songs of the record. What was the process like for developing the drum parts of the song?
uh I think that one originally came from, I think the main riff was a little bit of a leftover that he had from the As in Hell project. I think that it was that one. Not completely the same, but Demonic Depression went under. That was probably the song that we worked the most on because we couldn't really get it to work, and we were very unsure if it would actually end up on the album because we weren't too sure about it. But as for the drums itself, I guess it was just when I heard what he played that I said, okay, maybe let's try and add some double kick to it, and that was basically it, and it seemed to fit the overall idea of the song. But like I said, that was the one of the ones that we kept working on because there was part of it that we couldn't really figure out. It just didn't seem right. There was something, it seemed like forced or something. So we actually ended up when we were talking not long before we entered the studio actually, and we said, well, there's something about that song that doesn't work. We knew we had parts that we said, okay, this is kind of cool, but the rest of it is not. It doesn't seem natural. It seemed forced. So Michael actually said, okay, I'm going to go home. I'll see you in 2 days, and then hopefully I can come up with something new. And if not, we're going to skip the part. And then he came up, and I think that was the verse that he came up with that was different than the original version. And we played it, and we kept the double kicks throughout the song, apart from the choruses. And that it was like, okay, we got it. But it was basically what I heard him play that made me say, okay, let's try and do some double kicks. If it's too much, I can always take them out, or maybe only do it part wise or something. But it seems like it fitted the whole song, and it was like, okay.
Yes, the other song that caught my attention was the song "Acid Rain," because I think it has an amazing chorus. Uh, can you share a little bit about the inspiration behind this particular song?
Acid Rain. Let's see. I think Acid Rain was one of the songs where we were going to find and get the big hook lines and the big chorus. And I think one of the inspirations for it was actually Bruce Springsteen trying to get not like copying Springsteen, not at all. But he has a certain vibe to some of his songs, and I think Michael is a huge Springsteen fan. He said, it could be fun if we can see if we can get the same type of vibe as Springsteen. And I only know a few of his songs. I don't listen to him, so I was like, Springsteen, okay. So that one kind of went a bit in the other direction, but it still fits. It still sounds like us, and it still has what you would expect from a Volbeat song. But one of the inspirations, I think, was actually came from Bruce Springsteen, and I think it was more the way that he plays the guitar was more like what Springsteen perhaps would do.
Well, since you mentioned Bruce Springsteen, can you remember other artists that somehow was the inspiration for any particular song of this record?
No, no, not not not. I don't recall it's something that we talked about. Let's see, but I mean, the inspiration from the bands and artists that we listen to has always been there. Anyway, I mean, back in the days, we would listen a lot to Social Distortion, for instance, and not that we could copy what Social Distortion are doing, but again, just the vibe of it. But whatever we do has always been inspired by tons of band and artists. So, but I don't recall really any. I think in a way perhaps we were a little bit inspired by ourselves for for this album actually.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, one of the ideas was kind of like, let's maybe try and go back and see how we used to do it, and some of the earlier stuff that you did. And actually, the song "Lonely Fields," we talked about it once we were done in the studio, and Michael said, "You know what? That one could actually have been up on the first two albums. It's just like Soul Weaver, Part 1 and 2." And I was like, yeah, it's kind of got the same vibe as the Soul Weaver songs did. So you can kind of say we were inspired by ourselves.
Yes. Well, you recently mentioned that you don't listen to many new bands, but the Brazilian band Crypta somehow caught your attention.
Yeah, yeah. No,
What your thoughts about the drumming style of Luana?
oh, she's amazing. She's kind of, to me, she's a little bit a mix of the old school death metal drumming, and yet she incorporated some of the newer stuff, the more blast beats type of thing. Yeah, I think she's amazing. They're actually all amazing. I think they're a great band actually, and they're fun to watch.
You came from a death metal band school, let's say, in the beginning of your career, right?
Yeah,
How was the transition to Volbeat drumming style?
it wasn't really that much of a difference, because if I listen to some of the stuff, the bands that I were in before that, hasn't really changed that much. Don't play as fast as we used to do, but I was never into the whole blast beat thing anyway. I mean, I love Napalm Death, and they're the greatest at what they do, but it was never something that I really wanted to play. I was more into, the early Obituary, the early Death, more simple type of thing. I mean, Death was one of the greatest bands ever, but when they became so technical at the end, I kind of was got away from it, because it was like, yeah, it's a little bit too much. Just do 2 and 4, that's fine. So drumming wise, it wasn't really that much of a difference.
Yes. Well, John, uh, can you pick uh, 5 records that were the most important one for your life as a musician, and why?
5.
Yes.
Okay. It's gonna be hard. I think one would be Help by the Beatles, because I saw the Beatles on TV when I was a kid, and I thought it was the greatest thing I'd ever seen. I thought it was hysterical, it was funny, and the music was awesome. So that was actually the first cassette that I actually got, was Help with the Beatles, and I wanted to be Ringo. I told my parents, I said, I saw this thing called the Beatles. It's the greatest ever. And my parents were, teenagers in the 60s, and they were like, oh yeah, we remember the Beatles. And I said, yeah, that little guy who was playing the drums, it's amazing. I want to be that guy. I'm never going to be that guy, but because he was one of the main inspirations, definitely. So that's one. Two, I would say Adam and the Ants, Kings of the Wild Frontier. And that's because Adam was my first like real musical hero. I adored everything, what he did, how he looked. And he had two drummers. I mean, doesn't get any better than that. They had two drummers in the Ants, and that whole tribal drumming thing, just the fact that two of them playing together, creating that humongous sound was mind blowing, and it still is. I mean, Kings of the Wild Frontier, I still have it in my car, and I listen to it constantly. And that album came out in 1980, so you can see the everlasting of that one. So I'll pick that. I would pick Peace of Mind by Iron Maiden. It's my all-time favorite Maiden album. They've done so many great albums, but Peace of Mind for me is still the best work they ever did. And I mean, what a way to introduce a new drummer in the band. I mean, that drum fill for Where Eagles Dare, it's still to this day, it's one of the all-time greatest drum fills. And, I'm a huge Maiden fan, and, it's sad that Nico isn't there anymore, but they're still going, they're still playing, so, but definitely Peace of Mind. I would pick as a fourth one probably Master of Puppets by Metallica, because when I discovered Metallica was 85, 86, and Puppets was the first one that I got, and I was amazed by it. I was amazed, how can you play like that? I have never ever heard anything or anybody play like that. I didn't know anything about the punk rock scene or hardcore scene at that point. So for me, listening to songs like Battery, Disposable Heroes, Damage Incorporated, it was like, how do you do that? How can you play like that? I couldn't wrap my head around it. And it wasn't until I actually saw them in the summer of '86, I was like, okay, I get it. I get it. Now I know how you play like that. And I actually listened to Puppets the other day for the first time in years, and I was kind of surprised that it still holds up. It still sounds amazing. It still sounds fresh. And I mean, every single song on that album is a classic. I mean, Jesus. Okay, so for the fifth one, oh, what would I pick for the fifth one? Oh, that's so hard. There's so many. I mean, it could be a Slayer album. It could be the Misfits, the Ramones. But I think, no, you know what? I think I'm going to pick Clockwork Angels by Rush, the last album they ever did. I mean, Clockwork Angels has become one of my favorite Rush albums, actually. They've done so many great albums down the line, but just the thought that Clockwork Angels became the last one they ever did. I mean, what a way to end actually your musical career with definitely one of the best albums they ever did. And that whole album, it sounds amazing. They played probably better than ever. What a way to go out in style. And Neil, bless his heart, I mean, what a guy. Not only a tremendous drummer, possibly the best drummer ever to face the earth, but also his lyrics and his books and everything. That guy was definitely one of a kind.
Yes, since you mentioned Metallica and Lars Ulrich is Danish too,
Mm-hmm.
he was an influence for you because, well, you are from the same country, something like that.
Of course he was. I mean, like I said earlier, I mean, I've never heard anybody play like that until I got the Puppets album. And I couldn't figure out, like I said, how he did it, and of course that became an inspiration because once, we started doing our own bands, around the age of 15 and 16, Metallica became some sort of a blueprint, okay, this is what we have to try to achieve. I mean, any bands that I was in before Volbeat, of course, never amounted to anything, but we wanted to be as good as Metallica were at that point, and obviously still is, So of course he became an inspiration. Like I said, he was the first one that I heard who could play that fast as he did. Obviously, if a year or two down the line, I heard Anthrax with Among the Living, which is even faster. I was like, oh my God, he's even faster than Lars, that guy. And then Rain and Blood came out, which was like, oh no, that's it. Okay, show's over. You can't beat that. I mean, Dave Lombardo. I mean, Jesus H Christ, what a drummer. He was so far ahead, and Charlie was so far ahead. And then of course you had at least a whole generation who played even faster than those guys.
Yeah. Well, okay. Thank you, John, for your time,
You're
and
welcome.
good luck with the new record.
Thank you so much.